against USC. USC coming off, of course, a statement win against LSU in Vegas during week 1. So college football week 2, getting rolling here with a lot of great matchups that we'll talk about on the show today to get you guys ready for a busy weekend ahead. How about a little pro football? How about a little Pat Mahomes against Lamar Jackson coming up tomorrow night at Arrowhead in Kansas City? The Chiefs are getting 3 points, 47.5 is your over-under. Patrick Mahomes has dominated the head-to-head against Lamar Jackson, 4-1, including the playoffs. Lamar with some comments today about how it's kind of a mandate for them to get this win to start the season right. But pro football is back. You're going to see a lot of kind of random games as a result of some of the streaming stuff. So Thursday night, tomorrow night on NBC and Peacock features the Ravens and the Chiefs. Then you get the Packers and the Eagles in Sao Paulo on Friday. And that's going to be on Peacock as well. And then your typical Sunday slate, and it will culminate with a Monday night matchup in Santa Clara with the 49ers taking on the New York Football Jets. So a lot of football on the show today, as you would expect. RSL is off for 10 days before we see them back in action against Houston. We'll get an update on RSL, the new players, how they're fitting in, the health of Chicho Arango, and we'll go in that direction. Cool piece today in the Salt Lake Tribune about Caleb Lohner. Kind of a sneaky little storyline. Caleb Lohner, coming up this week, is playing his old school, believe it or not. He played basketball at Baylor. So a lot of fun Utah storylines going along right now. And we are just actually days away from the Utah Hockey Club making their debut here in our market. So we're going to do a little Utah Hockey Club conversation on the show today. Their first game of the preseason. I'm chuckling, and if you know my background, you know why. The Utah Hockey Club will welcome in the St. Louis Blues, and then away we go. Pro hockey is about to mark its arrival officially here in our market, so could not be more excited for that. Their first regular season game will be October the 8th against the Blackhawks. That game will be on ESPN. We do know the broadcast situation. We know the team, and we're going to tell you about that on the program today to get you ready for a little pro hockey here in our market. Good guest list on this Wednesday as we get you halfway through your work week and one day closer to the weekend. Even though we're out and about at the Dish Bros, we're on YouTube. So if you want to see what I look like at the Dish Bros, I guess Cynthia has us hooked up. If you want to know what Ryan from the Dish Bros looks like, log on to our YouTube channel and watch me talk. I've never understood it, but hey, we're a grown-up radio station now. Kyle Bonagura, right out of the gates from ESPN, covers college football and soccer for our friends at ESPN. He's going to stop by today to talk a little big-picture college football. Dalton Wasserman, our friend from Pro Football Focus, stops by to get us ready for the Week 1 slate of the National Football League. So do some pro football on the show today. The head coach of RSL is Pablo Mastroeni. Pablo will stop by today at 4 o'clock. And then I mentioned the Salt Lake Tribune. The sports editor from the Trib, Aaron Falk, will roll by as well. We'll talk about the Trib's coverage of Utah, BYU, Utah State, and get a little preview of the Jazz and some hockey coming up. And speaking of hockey, the new play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club is the old play-by-play voice of the Arizona franchise. I didn't think they'd bring any Arizona broadcasters up, but Matt McConnell is going to join us, who is the new play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club. So some college football, some Utah Hockey Club, a little RSL, some NFL, a little bit of everything on this Wednesday afternoon here on The Drive. Kyle Bonagura, Dalton Wasserman, Matt McConnell, Aaron Falk. Kyle Bonagura will join us right off the top. Me, Spence Checketts, and then back in the downtown studios of Salt Lake City, Utah, is where we find Porter Larson. I got to say, Porter, big shout-out to our audience. I received a lot of great support and feedback after I decided to announce my career shift as a life coach on the show yesterday.
There we go.
Yeah, it was exciting. It's very good.
And all support to you in that endeavor. And I'm with you there. Good life advice. Dish Pros, Greek Festival in the next couple of days. That's just some things that maybe we could point folks towards.
I am pumped to be at the Greek Fest on Friday. We'll be on remote at the Greek Festival. It's one of my favorite events they do all year. It's great food, cool music, so stay tuned for that. All right, we're going to chat with Kyle Bonagura right out of the gates for some college football, but on this Wednesday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too, downtown at Beer Bar, right in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. It is time now for your opening tip. Week 2 of the college football slate features a lot of really exciting, intriguing games on a national scale. Early on, oftentimes it's mixed, because as we've talked about, in my opinion, college football needs scheduling uniformity in the worst way. And we get some great week 0, week 1 matchups, but for the most part, teams are kind of easing in their schedule. We get Texas, Michigan in Ann Arbor at Michigan Stadium. That's the Fox Big Noon 12 kickoff with friend of the program, Gus Johnson. We get some other pretty exciting games. I would say from a Big 12 standpoint, Oklahoma State welcoming in Arkansas. That Big 12 SEC dynamic is something we'll be honed in on. We get a rivalry game in Iowa City between Iowa State and Iowa. So we've got a lot of really interesting, intriguing week 2 games, of course, as I talk about during college football season all year. First 3-4 weeks, if not even a little bit more than that, it's more observation than it is conclusion. Autzen Stadium with an interesting one coming up in Eugene as Oregon will welcome in Boise State. Oregon dropped 3 spots in the AP poll despite their win because they struggled with Idaho. So some exciting games nationally. On the local side, some interesting storylines to get into. Shout out to Jason Patacchio, who's the new beat writer from the Salt Lake Tribune and covers the University of Utah. Really cool piece on Caleb Lohner today at the Trib. sltrib.com is where you go. Interesting kind of side story here as Utah welcomes in the Baylor Bears coming up on Saturday for a 1:30 kick. That is on Fox. Our pregame coverage with Porter Larson and Jordan Wynn will begin at 9:30 here on our radio station. We've got a bunch of pregame stuff for you. Then, of course, Bill, Scott, and Sly will take you home. Utah is a very healthy 14.5-point favorite. But Caleb actually played college basketball at Utah, at BYU, and at Baylor. And so Patacchio today was able to catch up with Scott Drew, his old college basketball coach, and he also chatted with John Madsen, who once upon a time was a very solid basketball player trying to play college basketball down at Snow. And when the coach at Snow, Coach Judkins, said there's no room in the inn, young man, he tried his hand at football and ended up playing in the NFL, albeit a cup of coffee, I believe, with the Raiders. But Madsen didn't play high school football. Caleb hasn't played football since 8th grade, and he's already caught a touchdown pass. And I was mostly surprised at the snap count. I mean, he was playing a lot, even when the first line was in there. I mean, it looks like Caleb might be the legitimate backup tight end. Of course, there's a bunch of great talent in that room. So kind of a fun little side story as Caleb Lohner will see his old school, albeit the basketball team is who he participated with back in the day, and now he's playing, of course, college football for the U. And Jason Patacchio today also outlined a plan potentially for Caleb to play basketball after football is over. Now, there's a lot of time between now and then, and the football season overlaps with the basketball season, so I'm not sure if and if Caleb wants to try his hand in the NFL, he's probably just going to have to stick with football, even though I'm sure Craig and his staff wouldn't mind having a veteran, big, strong dude right out of football season play for their basketball team. But Baylor rolls into town on Saturday with some interesting dynamics going on within their program. Dave Aranda, who we all know around here with his local ties, is quite literally coaching for his job. This was a team that was 3-9 a year ago. Utah saw them a year ago, and even though Utah was playing, let's call it how it is, their 3rd and 4th string quarterbacks kind of in lockstep and simultaneously, they were able to go down to Waco and get a road win against a Baylor team who this year is more experienced, but they bring back the bulk of a defense that was 113th in the country last year in yards allowed per game. They have a transfer quarterback from Toledo who is the player of the year in his conference named Taquan Finn, who's a very dynamic athlete, but he's very mistake-prone. Against Tarleton State, he threw 2 interceptions, and they were really bad. It wasn't like a great play by a defensive back. It was just 2 really bad throws from a really dynamic athlete who, if allowed to get out of the pocket, can cause some problems. But ultimately, I don't really view this as anything other than the next step for this Utah team who has the identity, who has the health as of now. They know who they are. And if you listen to the show, first of all, thank you. Hello, how are you? Second of all, you know that I cover this team with lofty standards. I don't view this as a trap game. I don't view this as something that Utah football should be worried about. I view this as just the next step. You're a healthy favorite at home. You're playing against a team that is not thought to do much in conference or even elsewhere, you're a healthy 14.5-point favorite. And right now, you got to take advantage of the fact that you're more or less healthy. Of course, there's a couple of injuries on the defense that we've already talked about. And I think you go handle your business at home. I don't anticipate them being up 49-0 before you can make a sandwich, but I don't think this game is going to be very close. I like Utah at home. And as the week kind of rolls on, we'll give you our pick before we end up saying goodnight on Friday. BYU has a tricky one, and here's why. They're on the road at SMU, right? SMU had a good solid season a year ago. They've got an interesting dynamic with their quarterback spot as of now because SMU rolls with two quarterbacks, and that's not hyperbolic. It's just what they do. Preston Stone, who was kind of the incumbent, but he got hurt last year, so Kevin Jennings started the final 4 games of the year for SMU. They're both healthy. They both play, but they're both a little bit different. The Jennings kid can really go. He can really fly. So a lot of RPOs with him under center. They're going to try to get him on the outside with his legs, and Preston Stone is more of a classic pocket passing quarterback who had a really solid year last season before that injury. And BYU finds themselves going on the road as double-digit underdogs. The line at this point is SMU minus 11.5. This is a big game, if for no other reason, okay? So my whole thing with BYU and Kalani and that staff and hoping they do well and hoping that they win games is go bowling. Get to 6 and go to a bowl game. I think if you do that, no one will look at the season as anything other than a step in the right direction. Now, it depends on what the 6 games are, but here's the deal. BYU loses on Friday. That means they have to beat Wyoming and then find 4 conference wins during a conference schedule where they have 5 ranked opponents on their schedule. Now, 4 are at home. K-State, Arizona, OK State, Kansas at home. The Utes, of course, up here in Salt Lake City. But if they lose on Friday, they have to beat Wyoming and then find 4 conference wins if they want to go bowling. It's kind of a sneaky game for BYU coming up on Friday. But, of course, college football week 2 gets rolling. And we are live today once again at the Dish Professionals, 801-424-DISH. Ryan, my man, how we doing?
Doing awesome. Great to see you again.
It's a great time of year. Thanks for having us out. So, your guy Dave, my guy Dave, rolled by last night to hook me up with the new Hopper Plus installation. And, he's so good at his job. He's so quick. He's so fast. But we had a couple of minutes to catch up. And he informed me that there's a situation with DirecTV right now that sports fans and other fans probably need to know about. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, this is kind of a big one. Disney and DirecTV are at odds with each other for sure. It's I've watched some stuff on CNBC, and basically DirecTV's calling out Disney for not allowing them to be flexible with packages, and Disney's telling them that they're lying, and it seems like a lot of back and forth. And, it kind of just tells me that, seeing this in the industry, this is probably not something that's going to get resolved quickly. But you don't know. I mean, it could be resolved by tomorrow or even today, but it could be, the end of the month. You don't know. But, yeah, this is a painful one. If you're a sports fan and you have DirecTV, and you're not going to have the ESPNs, all those won't be there, Disney Channel. So the Disney family networks, they're all been taken down. So that's a big one. It's a stinger.
So right now, if you're a DirecTV subscriber, you don't have NFL Sunday Ticket. And if you don't have ESPN, you have 0 Big 12 access. Like if you're a DirecTV subscriber and you're a Utah sports fan, you are screwed.
Yeah, this is a tough one. But, you're not screwed because on average, it's $60 to $100+ a month cheaper if you call us and switch to Dish.
Yes, it is.
And you get a bigger DVR, tons more features. Like you talked about, you can get all the apps within the system now. Netflix, YouTube, and Amazon Video Prime are like channels. So Thursday Night Football, you just switch to the channel and you're watching it. And that's a simple solution, and it's a huge cost saver and a big upgrade on top of that.
And with the Hopper Plus, as I learned last night, you can get all the other apps too.
Yeah, every one of them.
Yeah, so like my old system, I can only get a few. And so I talked to you, and we upgraded the Hopper Plus, and now every app that I want is on my Dish Guide. I don't have to hit input or go find it. It's right there.
And the cool thing is it's the way the Hopper system works is all the other receivers in your house are tied to that, so you have access to that and all your other TVs. So you can watch any of that content in any of the rooms, including you got the Dish Anywhere app, which gets you access to not only all your content but all your DVR recordings. And this promotion is a rocking one. We want to throw in the Sunday or the or NFL Red Zone movie channels. We'll get you the 2-year promotional price with a price guarantee. And because you're here, we'd like to do the special offer. So $100 cash back today and today only. So you get $100, a check written to you if you call and get scheduled today.
So here's the other thing, and then we'll end it up for this segment. Even if DirecTV wasn't going through this with Disney, you should still make the switch because it's a better setup. Now you're losing Disney and ESPN. And with all the savings you talked about, right out of the gate, $60 to $100, you get the $100 cash back. You compound that interest over the course of a couple of years. You're saving thousands of dollars, and you have a better setup anyway.
Truly. And, I know a bunch of people are probably old DirecTV customers that are in that situation. Or, they've had cable for ages and ages. But I tell you, if you're spending close to $200 or more than $200, you got to call me up. And that's TV and internet, because the solutions that we have are much cheaper, and we've got these great offers with cell phones too. This new offer we have is as low as $12.50 a month for to bring your phone system over, and you get to use the biggest. I can't tell you the provider, but Boost piggybacks on another provider's towers, and it's the biggest provider in the state. So you might even be paying that provider right now, 60, 80, 100 $100 a month per line. And we're talking a lot less, $50, $60 a month cheaper per line. So all those things combined, Trevor did a customer the other day. It was over $300 a month.
Oof.
Cheaper.
Real money.
Real money.
All right, that was a lot of info. So all you need to do is call 801-424-DISH, 801-424-DISH, and you got people standing by to answer the questions.
Call us up. Tell us what you need. We'll get you the best price and get you some money in your pocket.
All right, brother. Good to see you. My guy Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Come on by. You can say hi at 8034 South State Street. ESPN 700 van is right out front. Or just simply pick up the phone and give them a call at 801-424-DISH. All right, coming up on the other side after a quick break, it's Kyle Bonagura for some more college football, doing some Utah Hockey Club today with Matt McConnell. We also have an NFL guest with Dalton Wasserman, a little RSL with Pablo Mastroeni, and a bit of everything with Aaron Falk. Suffice it to say, we are busy and live on YouTube on a Wednesday on ESPN 700. Another game week for Utah football. It's week 2 after a drubbing of SUU. Utah welcomes in the Baylor Bears coming up on Saturday for a 1:30 kick time. Reminder, our pregame coverage on your home of the Utes begins at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday with Porter, Larson, and Jordan Wynn. Let's talk some college football now, maybe a little soccer with our next guest. Joins us pretty consistently. He's not tweeting as much as he used to. He's Kyle Bonagura, back on the drive on a Wednesday. Kyle, I am a former Twitter addict in recovery, so I'm not judging you, but it seems like you've gone a little quiet on the tweet machine these days. Any reason why?
It's mainly because I despise the whole experience. I think.
Hello, Kyle.
Probably my number one. Can you hear me?
Sweet. Kyle.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, there you are. Kyle Bonagura, we got you. Sorry, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So I heard your question, and what I was saying was that my primary reason for not participating in Twitter is that I just despise the whole experience of using it. I think it's probably like reason number one, and I didn't really get much out of it at the end. So, yeah, I'll probably pop back on every now and again, but it doesn't really do much for my life or even really my coverage of college football.
I'm only viewing this from a selfish standpoint because with my guests, I like to look at their Twitter page to see if they've written anything or if they've gone on any podcasts so I can listen to them so I don't ask you the same question. So I'll just ask you, what was your week 1 of college football experience, Kyle? Did you go somewhere? What did you write about?
Yeah, so I went to Colorado. So I was there Thursday. So didn't watch the Utes live because that game was going on at the same time and was able to get back home to catch everything else on the couch, which was nice. You like being able to do that week 1, just kind of get a sense of who whatever it looks like, right? So it was good opening week for me, and weird kind of tracking all the Pac-12 teams in their new homes. I know we're not in conference play yet, but yeah, that kind of quickly sums up how I took it all in.
Fair enough. Since you were there in Boulder, let me take advantage of the space to ask you about your experience. Now, as you referenced, Utah was playing at the same time, so I did not see, outside of highlights here or there, the game until later. I did go back and watch the fourth because it was close. Now, not all FCS teams are created equally. North Dakota State, that's a good program. Now, as it is, I think if Colorado wants to show the world that they are as improved as they seem to think that they are, that probably wasn't the week 1 showing they wanted. What were your takeaways from Folsom?
North Dakota State might be the best FCS team in the country, so I more to understand going. At the same time, Colorado and Reno County, while that certainly was on display at quarterback, Shador's a very good player, and a receiver, Travis Hunter, of course. They didn't look much different than the Colorado team of a year ago. I mean, their offensive line, they only gave up 1 sack, but there was consistent pressure all day on Shador all night, and they really weren't able to run the ball at all. It wasn't really a play calling deal either. When they did choose to put the ball on the ground, there wasn't really any holes up front, and North Dakota State is supposedly this tough team, but they aren't very big, right? And so Colorado has the size and the measurables and wasn't able to really make a positive impression there. And look, they were losing for a lot of this game. North Dakota State moved the ball pretty well for most of it. Some of the clock management stuff was a real disaster for Colorado at the end. I mean, they had the game won. They could have basically run out the clock, maybe a couple seconds left on the back end, and chose to throw the ball deep, threw the ball on 3rd down with under a minute to go. So some weird stuff going on there. And yeah, going into this week against Nebraska, do you feel more optimistic that Colorado's taking steps forward? Probably not. I don't think anyone's opinion really should have changed much based on what we saw on night 1.
Since we spoke to you about this last week, I wonder, after having boots on the ground, you can look online and see all these YouTube videos entitled Colorado Communism and Coach Prime banning reporters from asking questions, and Sean Keeler is the Denver Post columnist that has been banned. Since you were down there, what's the best way to ask this? What's the feel like in press conferences when Coach Deion's up there doing the Deion thing? Does it feel like there are tremendous nerves? Are people scared to speak up? Does it feel a little culty? If you get since you were there after all this has gone down, what was the feel? What was the feel down there?
Yeah, so I mean, Deion's this larger-than-life personality. It was the same. Like, it didn't feel any different than it did last year, and I went to a few games then. Yeah, the guy just commands the room. He's a legitimate A-list celebrity. So when he walks in, there's a presence to him that is, really unique, and it's kind of cool to experience it just because of how unique it is. And so I think that dynamic, people don't really challenge him, right? There's a lot of really, this isn't necessarily unique to Deion. I think you see this on a lot of college press conferences where you have reporters in the room who are just trying to cozy up to the coach and want to be received well, want their questions received well. So yeah, a lot of that, a lot of questions that are asked in a way to make it seems like they're trying to help their own relationship with Deion Sanders. But again, like you see that other places. You definitely see more of that in Colorado. And something that I've noticed with Deion in press conferences is he doesn't necessarily always like listen to the question. He doesn't. He makes an assumption about what he thinks someone is trying to say, as opposed to just taking it at face value, which is a little weird sometimes. You'll have a very basic question, and he'll take it into a place that is, has nothing to do with what was asked, or tries to like be offended by questions, even if it was like a pretty fair ask. So yeah, it wasn't so different than it had been in years past. Chuck Taylor did not ask a question in the press conference. The Denver Post did. So there wasn't anything that felt like there was a big shift here to start year two.
So Utah welcomed in SUU, and it was pretty clear pretty quickly that it was going to be very ugly, and it was. So 49-0 was the score. Most of the starters were icing their knees by halftime. I know you didn't see it, so you've been doing this for a long time. The dynamic of these FCS, FBS games, ultimately they will go away, in my opinion, pretty soon. I'm not popular around here when I say I don't mind it. I understand the financial assistance these games give programs like SUU, and I'm for things like that, reaching back and lifting up and all that. But ultimately, it's kind of the reality that, the landscape is changing, and ultimately, it just makes it hard to understand if anything that you saw was real. Utah looked great. Cam looked great. Everything went to script outside of an injury to a cornerback, which is unfortunate. Are you a fan of these games when they pop up on the schedule, or you find, like a lot of people seem to be, that they're probably going to go away sometime soon?
Yeah, I'm mostly indifferent to them for the most part. I think when you see an FCS over FBS upset, I think that's really exciting for the sport. So when they're few and far between, right? But they do happen with enough consistency to appreciate it when it happens, right? And to look forward to those upsets. I don't know if we saw any this opening weekend, but it's always like that. Those are always very memorable in a way that, like, a lower tier Mountain West versus upper tier Power 5 game isn't, right? Like even if it's when the favorite wins, I guess. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it came at a good time for Utah this year with Rising coming off of the injury, and it's like, okay, like it's kind of nice to have that warm-up game, because I think what's like unique about college football compared to the NFL is, look, the NFL gets, I guess it's 3 preseason games now to kind of get their ducks in a row and make sure that once you're playing for keeps, you've repped against other teams. And so I think there are benefits from a standpoint for teams with high aspirations to kind of get a manageable game to start the year, and like you can do that against 5 teams well. But I do think there are benefits for the sport as a whole to have the regionality deal and help. SUU, obviously is the most recent example. But like, if they go away, when they go away, like, am I going to miss them? Probably not, right? So I think I can look at all the angles here and like just kind of understand the way it's trending, and look forward to watching circle those games. I wasn't certainly too something tiny. So all right, so I guess.
All right, so we'll disconnect from Kyle, and let's see if we can get Kyle back. And if not, we will try to do something else. So Kyle Bonagura covers college football for ESPN, covered the Pac-12 forever, and so he became a friend of the program. Sounds like we're having some phone issues. He was down in Boulder. Do want to get his thoughts on Baylor rolling into Salt Lake coming up. We were talking about this earlier. DeQuan Finn is Baylor's new quarterback via the transfer portal from Toledo, and he can cause some problems. He obviously had a great run at Toledo, Conference Player of the Year. But two pretty rough interceptions against Tarleton State. It does feel like, and we were just talking about this with Kyle, Utah with the schedule this year kind of easing into this thing, right? SUU week 1, Baylor, who appears to be on paper, from my vantage point, an excellent matchup for the way Utah wants to play. Coach Witt talked about this yesterday during his media availability. By the way, ESPN700sports.com is where you go to find Coach Witt, his media availability. He talked about wanting to run the ball better than they did even against SUU. Now, Scott Mitchell joined us yesterday and said they scored so quickly, it's hard to get everybody involved when you're scoring right quick. But let's see if we can bring Kyle Bonagura back on. Kyle, let's move over to Baylor here. Baylor rolls into town coming up on Saturday for a 1:30 kick. And this is another game, well, it's certainly going to be improved competition over Southern Utah. Utes are favored by 14.5. Baylor has a transfer quarterback in DeQuan Finn, who had a really, really good year for Toledo a couple years ago. They were the worst defensive team in the Big 12 last year. Baylor was. They were 3-9. They were the 113th ranked defensive team in the country. Dave Aranda is calling the defensive plays now, and he's kind of fighting for his job. It feels like. What are you expecting to see on Saturday, 1:30, when the Baylor Bears roll into Salt Lake?
So I do think that Aranda calling the plays is probably the right move. I mean, that's where he made his money in the sport, and it's kind of where he's really respected. So I feel like naturally there should be an improvement there over last year for Baylor. But at the same time, there's high expectations for Utah, right? So if you're not able to beat a Baylor team that was pretty bad last year, then it really changes the whole complexion of what to expect this season. I mean, I fully expect to see Utah win and win handily, but if it doesn't happen, I think then we'll have to reassess what this team will look like this year.
So Utah State is headed to the Coliseum, and ultimately, of course, USC is a massive favorite. They're favored by nearly 30. But I've got to say, I think the conversation around Lincoln Riley, Kyle, as you know, is what would it look like if he actually had a defense? And it's only 1 week. And I was kind of chuckling seeing some social posts from USC fans like celebrating tackling, right? Like you should know how to tackle if you're playing college football. But based on the past few years, it's been bad. What did you make of what we saw last week from USC's win over LSU?
Really impressed, right? I mean, I think that's what was obvious about it. It looked like a different defense schematically, but just from a toughness standpoint, USC for the last few years, I mean, it predated Lincoln Riley. Like, they just were soft on defense, and people took advantage of that. It was such a liability knowing that you had to score 50, right, to make sure you were going to win. Now, like, you have the talent, you have the scheme on offense. Now it looks like you have the scheme and capability defensively, and that's a pretty good combination to have, right? So North Dakota State's, we talked about them earlier. Their head coach from the last few years is now on staff as just like I believe he's just the linebackers coach, right? So they really invested in trying to bring top tier coaching talent in to shore things up, because I mean they had Alex Grinch running the defense, and he was kind of just Lincoln Riley's guy for a while, dating back to Oklahoma, and then it wasn't working. So he moved on from his buddy and got some guys in there who really have been accomplished the last few years.
Arizona State, now it's Wyoming, but I think a lot of people really think highly of Coach Dillingham, and Sam Levitt's their new quarterback. As far as all of the Big 12 games, I don't think there were a ton of surprises. Houston's not going to be good, so it wasn't a surprise to see Vegas run them. And again, Wyoming at home, but they were overwhelming. I mean, Wyoming was lucky to get a late touchdown. It was 48-0. They kind of made them look like an FCS team. Any thoughts on what we could see as Kenny Dillingham continues this rebuild from the ground up when he got the job, as you know?
Right. It's interesting when you pair them with Colorado, right? Because Colorado made all the headlines for their transfer portal use, right? And Arizona State was right there. I mean, the amount of guys who came in and left was very similar down there, and they were bad last year too. So they're kind of working on similar tracks, except for when you talk to coaches around, at least on the West Coast, everyone speaks very highly of Dillingham and his just offensive prowess, right? And there was kind of a consensus that he's going to be successful there. It was just a question of like when that was going to happen. And I didn't watch that game in transparency here, but I wasn't surprised to see them take the type of step to start this year, just because you hear at time once you hear from a bunch of people that you respect, this guy is a really sharp offensive mind. I've had a handful of conversations with him. He always comes across, he's impressed me just in those conversations with how sharp he was. So yeah, like not a whole lot of expectations going into the year, but here we are in week 2 or starting week 2 talking about them, and I think there's a chance here that they could be bowl bound, something like that. It's of course we got to learn to see what this Big 12 schedule looks like too. But yeah, if they're I certainly expect them to look a lot better than Colorado in 6 weeks' time.
Before I set you loose, let's talk about another Pac-12 team that most people believe can really compete for a national championship, and that's Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. And we already bemoaned the FBS-FCS matchups, but that got weird. It got really weird. Now, Dylan Gabriel's still the favorite to win the Heisman. He went for 1,000,000 yards, 380, had a couple of touchdowns, but it just did not look like the Oregon team we were all expecting year one in the Big Ten. Give me your thoughts on the Ducks.
Right. So I think when we talk about FBS wins over, like big wins over FCS teams, it's hard to really put much stock into that, right? But like in a close game, like I think you learn more from when a team struggles against an FCS team than you do when a team is wins pretty handily. And so, yeah, I mean, it's tough not to be questioning. I think I had Oregon as a top 5 preseason team, and maybe that ends up being the case still. But I certainly feel less confident about their ability to compete at the highest levels in the country, right? I do bowl projections every week. I still have them as a playoff team, but move them down a bit and still in the field. I mean, I think the talent's there, the coaching's proven, but if you just look at that from a performance standpoint, look, no one was impressed with what Oregon did last week, and yeah, that matters. And so now there's you got to kind of have to reassert yourself here to prove that you belong in the conversation among the elite teams in college football.
Kyle, you're the man. I appreciate the time. Enjoy week 2 of college football, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Kyle Bonagura from ESPN covers college football and soccer for the worldwide leader. Appreciate his time. At Bonagura, ESPN is where you find him. Speaking of ESPN, you got DirecTV? How's that going for you? So Ryan from the Dish Bros, we are live on site. It's 801-424-DISH. It's 8034 South State Street. So, Ryan, let's reset for our listeners who may have missed it and may have DirecTV at home what the news cycle has entailed over the past 24 or 48 hours.
Yeah, this is an interesting little dispute between DirecTV and Disney, which is the owner of ESPN. And there's a whole bunch of name-calling, and they've been pretty vocal that either side is wrong. And it's these things can last, so we don't know how long it'll last. And ultimately, it'll get resolved. But this is something that, if you're a sports fan, especially coming up on this next weekend, and you have DirecTV, you're not going to be able to watch a bunch of games. And this is the thing, though, is even if this wasn't happening, we encourage people, listen, if you call us up, it's probably $60 to $100+ a month cheaper to switch with this promotion. Take advantage of this 2-year promotional offer where the price is guaranteed. We'll throw in the NFL Red Zone. If you can watch the NFL Sunday Ticket through the Dish system, you can watch Thursday Night Football. If a game pops up on ESPN Plus, the Hopper Plus technology allows you to have all the apps, which will link through all your TVs. So you just call us up, lower your bill, and upgrade, and get the channels.
And today, incentive time. You got a special offer. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, today and today only, we do these remotes. We get a little extra money from Dish, and so you get $100 cash back. It'll come in like a check. I'll mail you out a check after you get installed, and you can spend it on golf clubs or Utah or BYU tickets, whatever you want. And so we'll send that to you if you call and get scheduled today. And that's on top of the national offer, which as the premier elite retailer in Utah, we guarantee you're not going to get a better price if you call anybody else. That's a flat out guarantee. And so if you call us up, get the best price, get the extra $100, and watch the games, plus the internet too.
And when you say call and get scheduled, it's a one-stop shop. Your guy Dave stopped by my house yesterday. Hopper Plus upgrade, install. It was quick, so you can handle everything if they just call you.
Yeah, that's we're the local presence in Utah. We handle our own installs, and like Dave has been with me since the beginning, in March of 2002, so 22 and a half years now. It's been a while.
Yeah,
so,
it's awesome.
It's awesome. And having good installers is the key to my business for sure. They're an important part along with the office staff. But yeah, you don't get a call an 800 number and sit on hold. You get to talk to somebody right away, and we'll get you taken care of right away.
Call today. Get taken care of before the weekend. 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, coming up on the other side, we're going to do some pro football because week 1 of the NFL starts tomorrow. Dalton Wasserman will stop by. Before we catch a break, I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. Clearwater Distilling is the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays, on-site or in-state liquor stores. The football season is kicked off. And Clearwater is the official spirits provider for our VIP ESPN 700 tailgate that we're going to have at every home game. Try their Scandalous. No sugar, no additives, great tasting grown-up version of cinnamon whiskey. It's excellent, neat, and also easy to mix. They have ultra-premium spirits, mini with unique twist, the Renee, the Armagnac, the Josephine, the Lorenz as well. Buy their spirits in state liquor stores, online, or take a trip to their beautiful distillery. Grab some booze, some local cigars, and immerse yourself in the Clearwater distilling culture. More information can be found at clearwaterdistilling.com. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Some NFL comes your way. Coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Going to do a little hockey on the program today with Matt McConnell, the new play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club. Get to know Matt coming up in a little bit. Pablo Mastroeni, the head coach of RSL, then Aaron Falk, the editor of the sports section for the Salt Lake Tribune. But let's do we'll do a little pro, little college football with our buddy Dalton Wasserman back on the drive from Pro Football Focus. Dalton, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. One day away from NFL. Can't wait for it to start, huh?
Yes, sir. It's finally here, and of course, week 2 around here at college football. But let's start with a little NFL, and let's start kind of out in our neck of the woods. We have a lot of San Francisco 49er fans in our market. I call it the Steve Young effect back in the day when I was a Niner fan before moving back east, and they've had eventful offseason that culminated with kind of a run-it-back mentality. Ayuk is back. They get Trent Williams back. Does this indicate, Dalton, to you that for the Niners, this is simply an intent that we are going all in, even if it's only for 1 year before we have to pay our quarterback?
Yeah, I think I think re-signing those two guys was incredibly important. You're talking about Trent Williams, who over the last 5 years at least, and he's the best tackle in football, and he might be the best tackle of this generation. And Brandon Ayuk, I think very quietly, has become one of the best wide receivers in football. He was second in receiving grade for us last year. He's just, I honestly think when you think about in their passing game in the classic sense of a wide receiver, I think he's actually their best one. And I know Deebo Samuel's kind of the do-it-all weapon, but when you need to win a one-on-one matchup, Brandon Ayuk is that guy for that offense. So those two guys, I think without them, I'm not sure that they could win a Super Bowl. But to have them back and to be fully loaded, knowing they were in overtime in the Super Bowl last year, look, the 49ers. One more shot before they have to pay Brock Purdy. Like you mentioned, they're still an inner circle Super Bowl contender.
Their week 1 opponent, sadly for your boy over here, is my childhood NFL team, the New York Football Jets, which tells you all you need to know about the way I roll during the NFL season. Give me a reason, Dalton, please, to be excited about the Jets this year.
Well, it's funny you mentioned because I'm actually from New York originally. I'm a Jet fan also. So
all right.
I know exactly what you're feeling at all times, trust me. But no, I mean, the optimism is the Jets have as much talent as any team in the league. When you talk about hopefully this time a healthy Hall of Fame quarterback, but I think where it really lies is in this offensive line. They rebuilt the offensive line finally after a few years of being towards the bottom of the league with it. Future Hall of Fame left tackle too, and Tyron Smith. Morgan Moses, a really reliable player on the right side. And that's really where I know everybody with the Jets always talks about quarterback, but they also had a bottom 3 offensive line in the league last year. They rotated through a million different guys up front and couldn't really block with any of them. So now they finally rebuilt it. A couple other guys, Elijah Vera Tucker especially, has to get healthy at right guard for them. But that's really where it is because we already know they're a top 5 defense. We already know Garrett Wilson is good. We already know Breece Hall is good. It's about the offensive line and the quarterback. And now it looks like going into it, they finally have both of those pieces in place.
You know, the answer to this question might simply be the other team has 15. But tomorrow night, we do see the Ravens and we see the Chiefs. And it's well documented that Mahomes, and I don't love the whole head-to-head QB win-loss stuff, but 4-1 Mahomes is against Lamar, and that's regular season. That's postseason as well. It's a little unfair when everybody piles on Lamar for not beating the Chiefs, when nobody beats the Chiefs consistently. But what do you most attribute the one-sided nature of these two teams that we are going to see tomorrow night, week 1?
I mean, just about all of the games have been close, right? And Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have kind of taken the throne from Bill Belichick and Tom Brady about being the best situational football team in the league, right? In just those moments, those last 5-minute, those last 2-minute moments, the end of the half, third down, it's those moments that lead to wins and losses for teams, you know. And the Ravens, as far as talent goes, probably have just as much talent as Kansas City does, but they just have to find a way to beat them in the big moments. And I think the other thing, too, especially the last 2 years, I think people still underrate this Kansas City defense. And Steve Spagnuolo is probably the best defensive play caller in the league, but they have a lot of depth in their secondary, and your front seven is always going to be pretty good when you have number 95, Chris Jones, in the middle of it. So I think talent-wise, the two teams are very even, and I think in a lot of the games that we've seen, it really just comes down to the Chiefs understanding situations and playing in big situations better than Baltimore.
Since we've already discussed both teams a little bit, I've found the Vegas lines for the Super Bowl pretty fascinating to follow, Dalton, because Vegas is telling us, stop overthinking it, it's the Niners, it's the Chiefs. And then there's a pretty big gap between the other teams, and certainly we haven't even played a game, and injuries happen, things manifest themselves in interesting ways, but if you listen to Vegas, they're telling all of us there are two elite teams and then a gap. Do you agree that it's KC and San Fran and then everybody else?
I don't think it's a huge gap. And one thing, I just saw those odds today as well, is the next 8 teams below those two are incredibly close. So I think
Yep.
the key thing that stands out to me is that there's a lot of different teams that could contend, right? And I think we have to take that with a bit of a grain of. Now, the Chiefs have won the last 2, so they deserve to be in that top spot. But I think the bigger thing is all we have is last year's data to work off of, right? We haven't seen anything. Any of that could dramatically shift in the next 3 weeks, right? So they were the 2 teams that were just in it. It's perfect. They're both incredibly talented. It's perfectly reasonable to think we could get a rematch. But, look, it's hard to play long season after long season, and the Niners have been in 4 of the last 5 NFC title games and in the Super Bowl again last year. And you just want, you get those one-game scenarios in the playoffs. And to me, I look at those next 8 or 10 teams. I go, wow, there's a lot of talented teams just nipping right at their heels, right? Detroit and Philadelphia on the NFC side, and I think about Cincinnati and Baltimore and Houston on the AFC side. I mean, I think, look, it's not going to be an easy road for either one by any means.
Got a good buddy who's a huge Bengals fan, and every day he texts me as if I'm some Bengals insider to ask me about Jamar. I'm like, I don't know. I'm in Salt Lake. I don't have any contacts in the Bengals front office. But I did see that Jamar Chase back at practice. Okay, so they see the Patriots on Sunday. Are we going to get some sort of resolution officially before this thing gets going? How do you think it plays out?
It certainly seems like it's trending in the right direction, at least if he's at least going to practice today. That's an improvement to that situation, and we started to kind of see the signs of that the same way we did in San Francisco too. The interesting part to me is that Chase has only played 3 years, so the Bengals have some of the leverage here in going, well, we can just wait till after the season. And obviously they don't want to do anything in bad faith. So we'll see if something gets done by the end of this week or maybe within the first couple of weeks of the season. But I would have a hard time believing that Chase is going to miss any games or more than one, certainly with the Chiefs coming up in week 2. And we've seen how he talks about the Chiefs. I don't think he wants to miss that second game. But no, I would expect him to suit up, and they're still going to negotiate behind the scenes. We'll see how long it takes for him to get an extension.
After tomorrow's opening tilt, we will see the Packers and the Eagles in Brazil on Friday. That game is on Peacock, so NFL fans are going to have to stay a little more frosty this year than usual because of the random games due to please go sign up for our streaming service dynamic, and I get it. But I wanted to ask you about Jordan Love. So we had Jordan here up in Logan at Utah State, and he was brilliant. And it felt like most people who know football felt like he was going to be what we saw a year ago. Then he gets his bag. I'll call it year 2, even though we know he sat behind Aaron Rodgers. He's paid now, and so you just hope he continues to work. He seems to be, from my vantage point, Dalton, that kind of kid. What do you think year 2 as a full-time starter for Jordan Love looks like in Green Bay?
If he shows us what he showed us the second half of last year, he's an MVP candidate, honestly. From week 9 onward, he was our highest graded passer. He had to, work out the kinks as being the full-time starter and get through some things, and sometimes his footwork's a little funny, and that's something that was talked about when he was at Utah State. But when he figured out really in the second half of the year that he doesn't have to take certain unnecessary risks, he can just play within structure at times and then use his crazy level arm talent at other times. He really found that balance in the second half of the year. If he continues that, then you're talking about a guy who's potentially a top 5 or 6 quarterback, because that's what he played like down the stretch last season and even into the playoffs, right? We saw him against Dallas just tear him up. And honestly, against the Cowboys, the Packers didn't do anything crazy to change their scheme or anything like that. They ran all the same stuff they always ran, and he just ran it to perfection. So he's got a lot of weapons. He's got all the talent, and as long as he stays out of taking just a few of those unnecessary chances that he was taking the first half of last year, I think he could be worth every dollar that they paid him.
As misguided as I was as a youth to pick the Jets, my producer was led astray as well, and he is a Cowboys fan. So we move over now. They see Cleveland coming up in the afternoon window on the road, but CeeDee gets his bag. Dak did not. The conversation around the Cowboys, Dalton, seems to have the same theme, and that is the owner thinks he knows it all, and he very much does not, but is unwilling to say that out loud. What do you expect from Dallas, not just Sunday, but big picture this year?
Sunday's going to be a tough task for sure because you're going into Cleveland, and the Browns in Cleveland are a monstrous team on defense, their defensive line. And I'm curious to see where the Cowboys are in the trenches because that's kind of the concern for me right now. Lost a lot of pieces on both sides, O-line and D-line. I actually think that could be a very low-scoring game considering some of the injuries and stuff the Browns have going on offense, and then some of the young offensive linemen the Cowboys have out there. But it's good to have CeeDee Lamb signed and locked in for sure. As far as the season goes, I have them as a wild card team, but kind of same old result where they lose in the first round of the playoffs. I don't see how they got better from last year. And I know they've won 12 games 3 years in a row, but it seems like they're just kind of slowly losing the depth of this team, right? And Dallas has as many stars as any team in the league. You look at their star power, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Zach Martin inside, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland. Like they have their 6 or 8 best players are as good as anyone, but it's that depth that's kind of withering away that bugs me a little bit when it comes to projecting the Cowboys deeper into the playoffs.
I know you do a lot of scouting on the NFL side. Give me your favorite to win Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year.
So I like Jaden Daniels for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's special, and I know all the talk is about Caleb Williams and the Bears, but I think his feet are special. I think he does a great job with ball security and not putting the ball in danger. He's incredibly accurate, makes quick decisions. I think as long as Washington's other young pieces around him can develop with them, guys like, we know Terry McLaurin's good, but guys like Luke McCaffrey that they drafted in the third round, guys like a tight end and Ben Sinnott, Brian Robinson in the backfield, we'll see how much the supporting cast is improving around him. But I like Jaden Daniels for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going with Leatu Latu. I think he was clearly the best defensive player in this draft when you flip on the tape. I know some other guys are more athletic freaks, but his play style and his pass rush arsenal, the way he uses his eyes on the field and marry it with his feet. Leatu Latu, I think, for the Colts, I think he's the best defensive player in this draft, and I think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Those of us that cover football around here have been watching Puka Nacua play since he was 14, but I don't think even Kalani Sitake would have told you that he saw what happened last year coming. So year 2 for Puka Nacua, they see Detroit on Sunday night. That's going to be a fun one. Ford Field, of course, 2, I think, good teams. I'm high on the Rams. I like Sean McVay. What's reasonable to expect from the player who broke rookie records, Puka Nacua, year 2 in Los Angeles?
I think as long as Matthew Stafford's healthy, it's reasonable to expect a similar level of production, and we'll see if Cooper Kupp can stay healthy for a whole year as well and kind of maybe take a little of the pressure off him as far as the volume. But no, Nacua, the route running, the toughness, the after-the-catch ability, you know what it is with him? He just plays the game the right way, and I'm sure you know that even a lot better than I do as long as you've known him. He just plays the game the right way, and he's so – there's like this level of competitiveness and talent and savvy that you don't get in a whole lot of players. I think it's very reasonable to expect him again to be a top 10 or 15 receiver, if Stafford makes it through, because Stafford can still make all the throws as long as he protects him. No question. That's still, even at his age, a special arm talent. I think Nacua is going to have a very similar season to what he did last year.
Let me follow up with a question about the Lions, who I'm high on, and I don't think it's a hot take. They're one of those teams after San Francisco and after Kansas City that's thought to potentially be in the mix there at the end. So, just kind of curious as to what your thoughts are on Dan Campbell's team this year. Are they being maybe a little bit overlooked by some?
I'm very high on the Lions. I actually made my official prediction was that they're winning the whole thing. I think their offensive line, I think it's the best offensive line in football. They have one of the best play callers in football. Jared Goff behind a line like that is incredibly good. You've got 2 good backs. You've got an elite tight end. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. And you've got, to me, the biggest thing that they did this offseason, they went and fixed the secondary, hopefully fixed the secondary for them. They were the 3rd worst coverage team in the league for us last year, and now they go and rebuild their cornerback room. They go and get a couple of veterans like Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson, spent their first 2 draft picks on cornerbacks, 2 really talented players in Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw, Brian Branch back there, and a couple other guys at safety. If they fix this secondary, because I keep saying this, if they had a good secondary last year, they would have beat San Francisco, and they may have won the whole darn thing. So I think the Lions, I have them winning the Super Bowl. I think they have every bit of potential in the world. The only thing for me might be I need one more outside weapon on offense. If Jamison Williams gets a breakout in his third year, then we really start talking about the Lions as one of the heavy favorites.
Based off of proximity, you won't be surprised, Dalton, to know that we have a lot of Denver Bronco fans here in the market. And, you know, BYU, former BYU quarterback, former New York Jet great, Zach Wilson, has landed in the Broncos organization and looked pretty good in his final chance in the preseason to show something. But Bo Nix gets that job, and I was about to say we're a Pac-12 market, and then my heart started bleeding. We used to be. And we saw Bo Nix up close last year here in Salt Lake. I don't think anybody's expecting, year 200 Sean Payton, anything, world-beating. But generally speaking, what do you think we're going to see in Denver this year?
I think there's more optimism after what we saw from Bo in the preseason than what I thought. Because honestly, I thought going into the preseason that Denver might be in contention for the number one pick. Honestly, I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's a great roster. I think they need more weapons and they have to fix some things in the front seven of their defense. But I think Bo, and everybody said this during the draft, Bo's a really good fit with Sean Payton, right? He's efficient. He's a bit mobile. He's accurate. He makes quick decisions. I think you're going to see bumps, obviously, but I think there's going to be some more optimism as we get further into the year with Bo Nix. We'll see if they're too conservative on offense, because at times last year they were, for sure, and we'll see if they can get a little more aggressive at times, and they have to build around them. Look, I don't think this is going to be Denver's year to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I do think what we saw from Bo Nix in the preseason gives a lot of optimism towards, okay, maybe this is what this can look like, and we just have to find the right pieces in next year's draft as well.
As a result of the Raiders relocation, the closest team as far as proximity to Salt Lake is now in Vegas, and it's Minshew Mania coming up this year. I don't know that anyone's expecting much from the Raiders. What's the Dalton Wasserman take on the Vegas Raiders this year?
Well, I'll go pro and con. The pro is I do like their defense. I mean, Max Crosby, Robert Spillane, and some of these other guys, Malcolm Kuntz off the edge across from Crosby. I think they've got a solid defense. They signed Christian Wilkins, and they played like something close to a top 10 defense once Antonio Pierce took over last year. I am worried about this quarterback situation, though, and between Minshew and O'Connell and kind of the way Antonio Pierce was talking about the competition as it was happening, didn't give you a whole lot of faith that there was a whole lot of good happening there. And it reminds me a lot of last year, the Atlanta Falcons situation, when they walked into the season with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, and you had this uneasy feeling of like, I don't know if that's enough at that spot. And for us, the Falcons ended up with the worst passing grade in the league. So I'm a little worried about it. I'm a little worried about even Minshew himself going away from Shane Steichen and into a different offense. So maybe they don't have a lot of margin for error on offense is the best way I can put it, in the same way that Atlanta didn't last year. I'm a little worried about the quarterback situation. If Minshew goes in and plays like at a B- or a B level, then we have a different conversation. But I think there's still some risk in just having those two guys as your options.
I know you gave us your pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year, Daniels from Washington, but let me ask you about reasonable expectations for Marvin Harrison Jr., because, Dalton, it seems like everything I read, he's like the highest-rated rookie receiver that you guys have had in a long time, and you're not alone. Certainly so much of it depends on the health of Kyler Murray. But what are you expecting rookie season year one, Marvin Harrison Jr., based off of the audacious expectations that seem to be everywhere?
I mean, honestly, as good as his route running and his talent is, obviously we know who his dad is and what he did at Ohio State. He was the best receiver in the country over the last 2 years at Ohio State. I think it's very reasonable to expect an 11 or 1,200-yard season in that offense, because when Kyler Murray got back for the Cardinals last season in the second half, we had them as a 10th highest graded offense. They played like a top 10 offense. They can really run the ball. And the best thing for Harrison is they have a lot of weapons. He's not the only weapon there, right? So he's thought of as the top weapon and the most talented one, but you have Michael Wilson, you have Greg Dortch, you have Trey McBride, you have James Conner, you have a lot of other guys who, okay, maybe I don't need Marvin Harrison to get 200 targets this year, but he's going to get the right targets. And I think to expect them to be their number one receiver and to get 1,200 yards, it's realistic, honestly, especially if Kyler Murray plays all 17 games.
All right, Dalton, before I set you loose, since you do a lot of the college scouting stuff, I want to ask you about two of our players here in Salt Lake who are back. to play for the Utes. Cam Rising under center. And it's been interesting over the past few years having guests on to discuss whether or not he's an NFL guy. I honestly don't know. I'm not a scout. Week 1 was great, but it was SUU, and then he's throwing it to Brant Keithy, who's also back, and Brant had 3 touchdowns week 1. A lot of expectations around here for these two. Are they pros? Are they NFL players? Give me your thoughts before I set you loose.
I think what you have in both of them is two similar guys in the sense of they don't necessarily have NFL prototype tools, right? And I think Rising's efficient, and I love his intangibles, and obviously the courage he plays with. We've seen that before. I don't necessarily know that he has the arm talent, and even watching him against Southern Utah in this game, I think he's still working his way. I don't think he's 100% yet. I don't know that his mobility is all the way there yet, and his mobility is a big part of his game, but I think he could get a shot based on his intangibles, but the arm, you don't have freakish arm talent like you do with some of the top prospects. And then Keithy's really interesting because he's a dangerous playmaker who can do some things in space, but he's about as small as an NFL tight end would be. So I think he sits around 225, maybe 230 pounds. He's a much smaller guy. He is a playmaker who can do a lot of things after the catch. And there are guys drafted on day 3 a lot of time who are like that. Anybody who can make plays after the catch usually gets drafted. So Keithy's really interesting, especially if he has a big year, and he got off to a fantastic start the other night, right? So, and those two guys, obviously, they're both going to get plenty of work because they're the key to Utah's team, right? And I know Kyle Whittingham, and they always play good defense and run the ball, but those two guys make the difference between them having a 7-5 season and possibly winning the Big 12.
Hey, Dalton, thanks for the time, man. It's great to have football back, and it's great to have you on. We'll do it again soon. Be good, okay?
Absolutely. Anytime. You have a good one.
All right, Dalton Wasserman, Pro Football Focus. Appreciate his time. We are live today at the Dish Professionals. Give us a call at 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH. So, a little testimonial. For about 10 years, I had DirecTV. Would come here, I would do remotes with Ryan, and he's like, dude, you're blowing it. I'm like, yeah, I know I am. I'll call you. And then I go home and I do other things. And then about 4 years ago, I moved, and I said to Ryan, okay, after a decade, I'm ready to do it. Moved from DirecTV to Dish. Over the course of 4 years, thousands of dollars in savings. I'm a sports talk radio host, so it's the best for me because I get all my sports in one place. And, Ryan, this was before the new information just came out about what DirecTV subscribers don't have now and may not have for a little bit.
Yeah, this takedown's pretty significant, especially for your sports fan. Disney and DirecTV are in a little dispute battle. There's a lot of name calling publicly, and you just don't know when these things get resolved. But hearing these things kind of makes me think it's probably not sooner than later. But this is a tough situation if you're a DirecTV customer. So. But, this is the thing. If you call up, even if this wasn't going on, it's $60 to $100+ a month cheaper. Bigger DVR, more features, a lot of great things that you get with the system. But because it's cheaper and you're going to get the channels you're missing, it's kind of a no-brainer. Plus, today we've got a little extra incentive that we're throwing in, some cash back. So this is this is what we do day in and day out with the customers that cable customers alike. They'll call in all the time, and he's so blown away about how much better the price is when you switch, and especially with the internet options. And we've got some cool bundles right now. Internet $50 a month, you get a bundle discount on your Dish system. We've got gift card offers on top of the $100 cash back that we're doing with the internet providers with no contract, no commitment. It's just an easy way to upgrade, pay less money.
If you think you're paying too much for cable, you are. If you think you're paying too much for internet, you are. And then finally, Ryan, before I set you loose, one of my favorite things about the Hopper Plus technology, and I was just reading week 1 of the NFL schedule and the college football schedule. You need apps. You need Amazon. You need Hulu sometimes. You need Peacock for NFL. And with the Dish capability and technology, you can put your apps on the guide. So you just go to that channel and watch your app as if it was a channel on the guide, which for me is a game changer because I'm old. I'll go input, forget your password, sign in.
Right.
That's one of my favorite things about what the Dish technology can allow.
Yeah, it's nice because everything's in one place. Like you said, Thursday Night Football is like a channel. You don't have to change inputs. And then, the way it works, too, is once you put the passcodes in, it's all saved, and it's integrated to all the TVs in the house. So if you decide, hey, I want to go watch in the bedroom, or I want to watch in the other room, it's going those all those apps and channels will all be available. All the DVR recordings are available in all the rooms, and even available on the Dish Anywhere app. You get full access to all that content.
Love the Dish Anywhere app. I'm glad you brought that up. You can watch your TV anywhere. As you referenced, you get your DVR and everything that's saved. All right, 801-424-DISH. Call right now, 801-424-DISH. Call before 6 so you can save that $100.
Yep. Call today. You get $100 cash back on top of the best price guarantee on this awesome promotion. And we'll throw on the NFL Red Zone, too.
Yes, which is a must if you're an NFL fan, believe me. All right, brother. Good to see you. Ryan from the Dish Bros, come on by and say hi at 8034 South State Street, or give us a call at 801-424-DISH. Got to tell you about my friends at Advanced Window Products. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber. When you choose a business, you choose the people that run the business. Choose the people. With Nate and Jake, they're the best dudes. It's a local company with the Orchard family having run this thing for like 3 decades. They do everything in-house, which means there's no middleman. So you save a grip of money. They build, install, and guarantee for life. Lifetime warranty. It's the best window company in Utah. You can save on your energy bill with custom window rebates from Dominion. And right now, if you need windows, you should call today. Ultimately, because you can beat from your factory to your front door in 8 weeks or less. So give them a call today. But if you're going to be in the market, if you anticipate maybe buying or selling a home, you should also call today, because they are offering a fall football special where you can save up to $2,500 if you purchase 10 windows or more. So if you call and get on the schedule today, you ultimately will be able to save this money, even if you're not anticipating being in the business for windows coming up for a few weeks. But if you need windows today, you should also call as well. It's our good friends at Advanced Window Products, so give them a call. All right, coming up on the other side, we're going to bring in Matt McConnell. He's the new play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club. So we're going to do some hockey coming up next, and we'll go from there on ESPN 700. Going to get back to some college football coming up in just a little bit. Going to do a little RSL as well. Back to the NFL in addition, as pro football makes its triumphant return coming up tomorrow with a little Thursday night football. But right around the corner, man, we almost made it. There's so much excitement for pro hockey to land here in Salt Lake City. And the schedule, man, we are days away, quite frankly. And we have found out who the broadcast team will be, what that will look and sound like. And the main man, the play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club, is Matt McConnell, who's good enough to give us some time on a Wednesday. Matt, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Spence, and thanks so much for having me. Really excited about this new opportunity.
Certainly, and excited to have you on the call. I mean, I am a hockey guy. I was raised in the Northeast where, Matt, as you know, hockey is kind of life or death out there, and I'm a Rangers fan at heart, but excited to get to know this club. So tell our market a little bit about yourself. I've been reading up and obviously familiar with some of your work, and it's official. You will be the play-by-play voice for this little old hockey club. Let's hear about Matt McConnell. What should our listeners know?
Well, I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. I was a finance major when I went to college, but I really struggled with the math, and so I couldn't get through the math. And had a sports editor uncle of mine, and we had a heart-to-heart one year at Christmas, and I said, Uncle John, I always thought about doing what you do, and he said, you know what, Matt? He said, you don't want to get 25 years down the road and say, what if? And that kind of did it for me. So hockey has always been my passion. It's been my favorite sport growing up. Dad used to take me to the old Chicago Stadium on the west side of Chicago. We'd sit up in the first or second balcony and watch the games. I was introduced by my father to hockey by watching games down in the family basement. So it's been in my blood for a very, very long time. I've actually, back in really early in my career, called games at the old Salt Palace. So I'm a little familiar with Salt Lake, but I can't wait to get to know not only Salt Lake but all of Utah. I had an opportunity to go up to Park City when I was doing those games back then. It's just a great opportunity, and I'll tell you what, I think I've hit a home run too in the organization that I'm going to as well. So let's drop the puck and let's get this game going, right?
Certainly, and I am old enough to remember when the Utah Jazz first came here and the Golden Eagles would outdraw them, Matt. So we actually do have a little bit of hockey history here. But what should, from a macro standpoint, what should our listeners know right off the bat about this club? It was funny when the introductory press conference took place right downtown at the Delta Center. The players were standing up. They were getting the crowd going, and the spicy tuna chants, everybody was excited. And Bill Armstrong stood up. He's like, hey, everyone knows that we're rebuilding still, right? Like, he's like, hold on a second. Like, this is a young team, and it is a young team with a lot of promise, though, and we'll get to some offseason additions, too. But from a macro standpoint, what should our hockey fans know right out of the gates about this new club?
Well, first of all, they've got some dynamic players. There are players on this roster that will literally bring fans out of their seats at the Delta Center. And I'm talking about Clayton Keller, who's been a terrific player. Geez, he's now in, I believe, his 7th or 8th season. Hard to believe that. Young players like the Pittsburgh native Logan Cooley, absolutely dynamic. First game he ever played in the preseason when the team was in Melbourne, Australia last year. I mean, you got to go on YouTube to see it. It was a spinorama move for the ages. So they've got a lot of good young talent. I think Bill Armstrong has done an unbelievable job as general manager to get this team into position to not only be good for a couple of years when they get to that point, but to be good for a long time, right? He took the medicine early. He jettisoned some players in their previous iteration to gain draft picks. And now those draft picks are paying off. So, the team had a great draft in June as well. The free agency and the trades, they did a great job of shoring up their blue line. So I think they're on the cusp. I really do. And to be a part of it is just really icing on the cake for me personally. But it's a fun team to watch. They're going to score a lot of goals, and they've got some really good personalities, too, to follow.
So they bring in Mikhail Sergachev, who has won a cup, John Marino as well, and then Ian Cole, who's in his mid-30s, but he's played 75-plus games over the past 4 years, and he'll be that, third, fourth-line defenseman. Kevin Stenlund as well, who's also won a cup. So give me your thoughts, Matt, on the offseason additions, and does it signal – because, like I said, Ian's in his mid-30s, a good veteran presence for this young defensive group. Does it signal some intent to do what they've done in the offseason, and what do you expect from some of the new pieces?
Well, let's start with Ian, right? Ian Cole is a heart and soul defenseman, right?
Yep.
He's going to really lead that back end in a lot of ways. He'll probably be a third pair guy, right? But he is a guy that's durable, that'll play a lot of games. He'll play in good, in different roles. Mikhail Sergachev played across from Victor Hedman in Tampa Bay, one of the best defensemen ever to play in the National Hockey League, and he's been absolutely terrific as well. Where they really needed to shore up in terms of the talent was on the back end. They're going to score a lot of goals, I'll tell you that. They got a lot of firepower up front. But the question going in to this offseason, they didn't have a single defenseman signed. They were either unrestricted free agents or restricted, and now they've really done a great job in terms of adding pieces that I think are going to really solidify the back end and cut down on some goals against. So that was the priority, mission accomplished, and now now it's going to we're all just waiting to see how it all comes together.
Is it fair to say, and I heard Bill talk about this recently, I don't want to say playoffs are bust, but it does feel like with some money that was spent during the offseason, the emergence of some of the young players that we've already talked about a year ago, you got the coach in place, you got the front office in place, you have an ownership group that will spend money to improve this group. And, Ryan and Ashley are very committed to our state, but they're also very committed to this hockey club, even though he has his attention split in different scenarios. Is it fair to say playoffs should be the reasonable expectation, Matt, this season?
Well, I think they're gonna challenge for a playoff spot. I don't think it's playoffs or bust. I think it's playoffs and then be in the playoffs for many, many more seasons to come. I think it's that situation. So when they make it to when they do get into the playoffs, I think it's going to be the start of something very, very good. And if you look at the core up front, you're talking about a lot of mid-20s guys, right? That once that all comes together, and that core, it's not just a guy or two. It's like I've said before, it's kind of a gaggle of guys now, right? Because they've drafted so well. So I think when they get to the playoffs, they're going to stay there for quite some time. And obviously, the ultimate goal is to win the whole thing and win the Stanley Cup and bring it right here to Salt Lake.
We should also add, ultimately, they still have a little bit of cap space. Signed Sean Dursey to a long-term deal, but and if you have different info, Matt, please educate me. According to what I have in front of me, they still have about $12.57 million in space. We are up against it. We have preseason action on the 22nd, then the Blackhawks are in town. Do you anticipate them utilizing the remaining money? And if so, what spot would you like to see maybe solidified or have a little depth added to?
Yeah, I think they've made a nice signing with Robert Bortuzzo, who's a depth defenseman. They signed him to what's called a two-way contract, so you can play him here, you can send him down to the American Hockey League without the player having to go through waivers and being offered to, all the other NHL teams. But I would imagine, with maybe a camp tryout here and there, that this is the team that they're going to have going into the season, where they can really utilize that additional cap space is if they want to, do something at the trade deadline. And the trade deadline always happens early in March, prior to the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the bottom line is they've got a lot of flexibility, Spence. They can do a lot of different things. And certainly having the backing of the great ownership group led by Ryan and Ashley Smith, they will be able to do that if they feel that that's something, to move it forward.
I wonder what your thoughts are, because I've tried to be pretty sensitive. I have relatives down in the Mesa area, and they're big, Arizona sports fans, and they loved the Coyotes, and it became pretty clear, it's not breaking news, that the ownership situation was clearly untenable. But I've been trying to be a little bit sensitive to that community about the fact that their team was just snatched up overnight. I mean, that affects a lot of people. You're the guy for this. What was it like for that community once the news started to leak that this thing might go down, and then it became official that they were losing their team?
Well, I'll tell you what. Over the summer, I thought a lot about the fans in Arizona. They're great fans. They love their team, no doubt about it. But right now, I don't know if it's just the 5 months or so. I've kind of started focusing myself on now and in the future, right? And it was hard. It definitely was hard for the fans. It was hard for a lot of people. They were a big part of the community, no doubt. But now I'm looking forward, and I just want to think about what's ahead of us and what what lies ahead with this season. It's all new here, and that's a real appeal to me coming to Salt Lake. I think the newness is going to be great, and having a new team to cheer for, I think will be a lot of fun for the fans here.
No, well said. Matt McConnell is our guest. He has spent the last 13 seasons calling Coyotes games in the desert, and he is the lead broadcaster, the play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club. It was just announced pretty recently. What have been your impressions, Matt, of not just the ownership group, but I'm great friends with Chris Barney and Travis Henderson. I worked for the Jazz for 7 years, and they really are what they seem to be: good people that do things the right way. Intentionally building a culture to make sure that success is long-term. I know you haven't been on the ground all that long, but what have been your impressions of not just the ownership group, but the rest of the people you're going to be working with day to day?
Well, unbelievable ownership group, unbelievable front office, unbelievable just good people that I've come across on the team side. Everybody has been so helpful in my transition moving here. Just people in Salt Lake, they've all, it seems like everybody always says hi to you. They're saying, they're just very friendly people. I just moved into my place, and the people here couldn't have been nicer. And I think that's the vibe I'm getting about, people that live in Salt Lake and all Utahns, that they're just wonderful. Now, I can't wait to get out and really explore the city. I've been walking around. I guess I got to get to Mateo's. I've heard so many great things about Mateo's. Mm-hmm. I know the red iguana's on my radar, so I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna have a lot of things to do around my hockey schedule. But I don't know. I love the neighborhoods. I love the fact too that it's a little cooler here. So just I can't wait to explore and to be part of the community and the culture here.
Yeah, I'm a transplant of sorts. Born here, moved young, grew up in the Northeast, and came back to go to the University of Utah. And I've stayed here for pretty much 25 years. It's good living, Matt. You're going to like it here. And we have a lot of fans very excited for this new endeavor. Here's what I want to get from you to this community, because I've always said, long before hockey was on our radar here, I've always said it's an underrated sport. During the debates of who are the best athletes in the world, I don't think hockey players get enough love because they do what they do on skates. When you see it in person and you see it up close, it's quite simply stunning what they can do. So tell our community about the spectator experience. You got to go live, and I've also been saying please be patient because there will be some impeded views while they're figuring this thing out, and once the renovation is done, that building will be better for hockey in a way that it just isn't now. And Ryan and Ashley have been very front-facing about these situations. But from simply a spectator consumer experience, tell our listeners what it's like to see pro hockey live.
There is no other sport, Spence, and maybe we're in agreement on this, but there is no other sports that is better live than hockey. And if you know the sport and you're a fan and you're going, you obviously know what it's all about. You're going to have a great time. If you're new and you're excited to try it out, it's a wonderful sport, and I would almost encourage you to maybe go with a friend that's a hockey fan already and sit with them. When you see the athletes out in public, they are as approachable as any other sport we know. You might be in Smith's, or you might be in Trader Joe's or wherever, right? And you may see Liam O'Brien's spicy tuna, or you may see Clayton Keller. Say hello to them. They will spend time with you. They will ask you how your day's going. They are the most approachable athletes, and they've got wonderful personalities. So take advantage of that. And if you're ever, we're going to be at the top of the lower bowl at Delta Center, right, on the one side. At Center Ice. If you're ever in that area and you see where we're sitting, come by and say hello. I would love to meet as many fans as I could, and as I make the connection here to Salt Lake. And I mean that sincerely. Stop by, say hello, let me know what your name is, and that would be wonderful.
All right, Matt, before I set you loose, let's have a little fun here. I feel like the natural answer to this question is probably Colorado. It's probably the Avalanche. The problem is they're awesome, and they're going to be good again this year. But we need a rival, okay? We need one team in pro hockey that will manifest itself as our rival. It feels like it's Colorado. Give me your thoughts on that, and would you add any other teams to that conversation?
Well, I think when you talk rivalries, right, a lot of those rivalries are born in the playoffs, right? So just out of the chute, I think you got to go regional, right? You got to go geographic. So I'm with you on Colorado, but how about that team about 5.5, 6 hours to the southwest that came in a few years ago and has had some pretty good success. I would say it's either got to be Colorado or it's got to be Vegas, right?
I'm with you there. It's got to be one of the two, and rivalries cannot be forced. They just kind of come about as a result of experience playing against each other. But I don't know, man. I'm really pumped. I appreciate your time. Are you on social anywhere? Can people go follow you on social media, Matt?
Yes. My Twitter handle, and I just changed it. It's at Matty, Matty, Utah HC. At Matty, Utah HC.
There you go.
Excuse me. No, hold on. Jeez, I screwed that up. At Matty, Utah HC TV. Sorry, at Matty, Utah HC TV. I just changed it today.
Hey, all good.
A little bit of a.
No. We're all good. We're all learning new things as a result of this great project that Ryan and Ashley have been so good to undertake, which has been bold. I'll tell you what, but bold endeavors lead to great things. I'm thrilled to have pro hockey. You always have a spot here on my show, Matt. Welcome to our market, and I look forward to getting to know you better, okay?
Spence, sounds great. Thanks. And if you ever need anything, just let me know.
There we go. Matt McConnell. He's very good at his job. This was an exciting announcement for me. He's been calling pro hockey since 1993, a named play-by-play announcer of the year 4 different times. Spent a lot of time in Arizona calling Coyotes games, and now he is the new voice of the Utah Hockey Club, which not resumes. They start play coming up in a matter of days. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We're live at the Dish Bros, 801-424-DISH. You look like, Ryan, at some point you could have played hockey. Did you play hockey at all?
No.
You look like a big bruising defenseman, but just football. That was your thing.
Football, basketball, yeah.
Motorcycles.
But I race motorcycles.
I know you do. But you also save people money.
Yes, I do that.
See what I did there? And get them the best television setup possible. For my direct TV friends, Ryan has some info. Drop it on them.
Yeah, this, if you haven't noticed, Disney and ESPN has been taken down. There's a pretty ugly dispute going on between DirecTV and Disney, and a lot of name-calling publicly where they're calling each other misleading or lying, and that's kind of not a good sign for this to get resolved soon. And so, but, we just tell people this, call and see what we can do. I know there's a lot of customers that are long-time DirecTV customers. But if you take the jump and look at what Dish has, it's a better system, bigger DVR, it's faster. and we typically are 60 to $100+ a month savings when you switch.
You know what I just remembered? My last year with DirecTV, they got in a fight with like NBC during football season, and you lose NBC during football season. I remember Sunday night, like it seems like sometimes they don't play very well with their playmates.
No, they don't, and these are tough ones, and we see it. We've seen it happen, and it's happens in all the industries, and this is an opportunity for us to help people. Don't go without. Let us get you the best system out there for the best price. We got this great promotion, 2-year offer. We've got the NFL Red Zone that we'll throw in for free for a year. Movie channels. The price is guaranteed, and today only, we'll do $100 cash check to you when you call and get set up with Dish.
Not to me, people who call you.
Not to you, Spence.
Okay, I'll get my $100 another day. So call before 6 o'clock to get the $100 savings. Lock in the best sports watching situation possible. One-stop shop. They call, you take care of installation.
Yeah, call us. We'll take care of everything. We've got also fantastic internet solutions. That's the big thing, too, is I have over like 10 internet providers at our fingertips, and there's some neat promotions. I got a bundle with Dish now that we can offer. It's $50 a month, plus you get a bundle discount. There's just so many good providers out there. So if you're spending $200+ a month, it's almost a slam dunk. It's thousands of bucks by just calling us up and taking advantage of the offers, and plus you get cash back on top of that.
Got a call today, though, 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH. Ryan, you are the man.
Thanks, sir.
All right, we got 2 hours down. We got 2 hours to go. Good stuff today from Matt McConnell, getting to know the new Utah Hockey Club. We'll do a little RSL coming up with Pablo Mastroeni. RSL's on a break. They'll take on Houston coming up in 10 days. 3 points over the weekend against the Revs. We'll bring in Pablo, then some college football with Aaron Falk. We'll go from there on a Wednesday on ESPN 700. We got Aaron Falk stopping by from the Salt Lake Tribune. We'll do some college football with Aaron. Good piece in the Trib today about Caleb Lohner, the University of Utah tight end, who is playing his old school on Saturday, but he played basketball at Baylor. Now he's playing football at the U. So we'll bring in Aaron today. Then we'll launch into the 5 o'clock hour. RSL is off again. Goodness gracious. I'm sure my next guest is fine with that. And, of course, the next game is against Houston because it's always against Houston. And the head coach of RSL, Pablo Mastroena, is our guest on a Wednesday. Pablo, happy Wednesday, buddy. How we doing?
Happy Wednesday, Spence. Doing well. Just training and preparing for next weekend's game.
Certainly, and as I referenced, it's another break. Now, for a while it seemed like you were playing 3 games in a week, but I would imagine, Pablo, with the opportunity to have a little extra time between matches, from a manager's standpoint, it's a good thing based off of this roster turnover. Is that fair to say? And attendant to it, what do you hope to have in place by the time you play again in 10 days?
Yeah, no, I think it is. You're absolutely right. I think time definitely favors us at the moment, although we lost Dominic to the under-21 Polish national team, so he's flying abroad and won't be back until the Thursday before we take off on Friday, so that doesn't help much. But as far as Diogo and Lachlan and Javane, it gives us an opportunity again to continue to work on some things that we need to as a team in lieu of this game against Houston.
All right, so we had Jason on yesterday. I'm going to ask you some of the similar things I asked him because I had both of you on prior to the San Jose game, and I asked you, do you feel like you may have traded immediate results in the name of long-term progress? And that's fine if that's the deal. And both of you kind of push back on that idea. And I'm not saying you did. I honestly don't know. But then the San Jose game happens, and you go, wait, well, what's up? But you rebound nicely, and you get all 3 against New England. What do you like most about the week between San Jose and New England, and what do you like most about how your team went about their business to get all 3?
Yeah, I think, again, when you're not getting the results, you start lacking a little bit of confidence. And when you lack confidence, then I think doubt creeps in on really both sides of the ball. And it could even be tactically as well. I think you start overthinking things, and as coaches, you go immediately to the whiteboard and you start moving magnets around. And so for me, one of the focuses last week was play from a place of feeling, not thinking, right? So oftentimes we feel like, okay, if we work on it this week, they're going to get it. And the truth is they might get it in training, but when the bullet starts flying, people will always revert to their level of training and understanding of the game as to where they are in their own journeys. And, I think obviously making 6 changes to the lineup had a big influence. And then really allowing the guys to play what they saw in the game, as opposed to, this is what they do, this is what we need to do. It's more like, well, if that doesn't show up, what's the next best play? And more importantly, what's the reaction like? What's the mindset like? So we made some tactical adjustments, and I think the biggest one of those is creating some mechanisms from our goal kicks where we were getting punished to play long and not in a unsophisticated way, but to really stretch their back line and add doubt into what they're doing, because now teams are scouting us. And it's really easy to say, oh, this team always plays through their midfield, and they play centrally. So if we load up the midfield, then it's going to be easy for us to defend. And so I think just adding a couple wrinkles, switching 6 guys out and having a great mentality and a great start to the game really gave us confidence, first half and then throughout the game, to hold on to a good result with a good performance. And there's some really important performances, Diogo and Lachlan, Gavin Beavers. And so some of the changes really helped the group out. And so now I hope that we've now created a good, stable foundation to now provide competition for everyone in the group, because everyone wants to compete when we're winning, and carry that to Houston.
I don't know any other way to ask you this than just to ask you. So I'm just going to ask you, is Gavin your new starting keeper?
Yeah, he will be for the remainder of the season. Again, these are really difficult decisions, especially when you're pulling out an experienced goalkeeper who's had a lot of success in the past few years. Zach has been an amazing teammate. He understands that some of the goals that we were conceding were a bit soft, and and he's changed his mindset. He's working out in the gym. He's training like a pro. So again, a really good mentor to Gavin, whilst continuing to hone his own craft and be ready to go if something were to happen to Gavin.
I don't mean to sound combative, and I'm not. But Zach could not have been surprised, right? I mean, I talked about it with you. I talked about it with Jay, and to your point, Zach has landed here. He landed here initially. I think the thought was he was going to be a backup when he first got here, and ultimately he took the job. And to your point, he's performed well for the most part. But what was that conversation like? I mean, Zach had to know that something was coming. You have to be held accountable when you don't perform. Is that fair?
Yeah. No, it's fair. But it's really interesting, Spence, because every single professional athlete has this alter ego that can't do wrong, right? And I believe you have to have that, because all along your journey to the professional game are naysayers, are people that are always telling you can't. Right. And so unfortunately, what naturally happens is that you start to deflect responsibility. In Zach's case, we went out to dinner, and when I got to the restaurant, it was more like a sports bar, by the way. It wasn't a restaurant. He said, I knew exactly why we were going to have this dinner. And I thought, oh, okay, great. Well, that's good. And so we just talked about just like what he feels and what he felt, and I just wanted to hear from him, And again, he took 100% responsibility for the last performance, and was understanding. Again, I don't think any professional athlete will agree with my decision, but he's understanding. And I think as long as the communication comes from a place of respect, because oftentimes players, you say you're playing poorly, it also means that you're a bad person. You're not a great teammate. It adds all these extra negative connotations that aren't accurate, right? And it says, I said, we're a professional team. We've got to hold each other accountable if we're going to move forward in direction from where we're currently at. And so he took it on board. He said, I'm going to be a great teammate. I'm going to train every day to get better because I want to keep playing at a high level. And that's all I can ask for from a coach's perspective.
See, I find this conversation really fascinating because you can't take it personal. You just can't. But that's so much easier said than done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. But everyone takes it personal because it's them, right? And it's like, and oftentimes as coaches too, it's like we have to have this meeting all the time, or not meeting, but we just chat about it all the time. It's like, surely he knows. And I'm like, surely he doesn't. Surely he thinks it's somebody else's responsibility. Like, surely, because again, our natural reaction is to be defensive, right? And when you're defensive, obviously you're going to look for blame, And so I think that's where communication is really, really important amongst staff, amongst players, is that it's not you're a bad person or you're not really good at what you do. It's just currently at the moment, it's not at the level that we need in order for us to move forward.
Well, and also, well said there. Also, you just have to understand everyone involved in this thing has to have one thing in mind, and that is what's best for the club, what's best for the team. And coaches have different ways of going about it. Coach Witt, the Utah football coach, the ESPN broadcast on Thursday of last week, they showed on the screen a new saying that Kyle's been using to his recruits, which it made me chuckle because it's very much like Kyle. It said, quote, "We will not become you. You will become us." And Greg Popovich famously says to all of his players, get over yourselves, right? So your job as the coach is to understand that you have to figure out the best way possible to communicate to your players, even though they're highly paid professionals. Like, we are all here with one common goal in mind. How do you best go about that with your group, understanding how important it is to get everyone on the same page?
Well, it's been interesting, and I think we've experienced every aspect of that spectrum this year, where when we started the campaign and pretty much for the two-thirds, not even two-thirds, halfway through the season, everyone was playing for the team. Right. And then what naturally happens is you have success because everyone is contributing. Everyone is selfless. Everyone is, the ego's on the back burner. But all of a sudden now, halfway through the season, everyone started talking about Chicho, about Gomez, about Luna, about Emeka, about Jay Glad. And all of a sudden, before it like flies under the radar. Now you start to see moments in games where these guys are playing for themselves, and it's not even like they're not even conscious of the fact that they're doing it. They're just going along with the vibes of the universe, which is saying
right.
You are great, not that we are great, right? And so then it's taken some time to kind of say, guys, like, listen, if we are successful, we will continue to develop. And you as individuals will continue to shine, but you can't apply your trade individually. You must apply your trade within this group concept. So I think it's a constant, reminder. We meet every day in the morning before we start training, and we get in a circle. And I ask one player to inject some confidence from a team perspective, like, what do we need to do as a team today? And so it's these little things that just keep reaffirming who we are and what we must do together, as opposed to individuals. But then again, if these moments happen where there's a lot of positive press, naturally the human being will try to isolate and make more of it for themselves than the group.
Tell me how Gavin received the news. I mean, one thing that I will say, and I'm sure this comes with age, I'm sure it comes with reps, I'm sure it comes with experience, Zach is an outward front-facing communicator in a way that Gavin doesn't seem to be. Now, I'm not bringing that up as a knock on him. He's 19. When I was 19, if I brushed my teeth twice and put on matching socks, I won the day, bro. And he is your starting keeper. So how did he take the news? And attendant to the question, what are you asking of him to make sure that he needs to understand that he has not arrived either?
Yeah, so again, obviously very, very thrilled with the opportunity. And one of the things that I spoke to him about was just, again, working on that communication piece, which is connecting to the back line on both sides of the ball. If we have the ball, communicating what you want to see, opening up your center backs, pulling your center backs in, and then defensively as well. And what that does is it allows the back line to have a lot of confidence in you because they always know where you are positioned based upon your voice. So I think that's the first part. The other part was, and it's on us as coaches, right? Because to your point, explaining to a 19-year-old what he must do when he hasn't experienced it is advice that he's going to take further on down his career. And all the words that we're saying now will make sense once he's lived it. But because he hasn't lived enough first-team football, the onus is on us coaches is to set up, we want to build out of the back every time, but how can we do that in a way that doesn't put so much pressure on Gavin to make great plays with his feet? Because one of the things that I've learned quickly was if you ask a goalkeeper to play with his feet and he makes a mistake, then he loses a bit of confidence. And with that confidence, it also now affects his hands, right? So we set up 4 or 5 plays from goal kicks that absolved him of the type of responsibility that we put on Zach. And so what we're asking with this goalkeeper change is not necessarily to play the same way, Zach, is to do what you do really well and do what we're expecting of a goalkeeper, and that's to make saves. And especially big saves. And Gav came up huge in the second half, where it was almost a breakaway or it was some sort of breakaway, and he came up trumps. And that's the play that we need to stay in the game. And so when he's doing his job, the rest of the group can do their job. And so part of it is Gav's going to learn as he goes, but the other part is the onus is on us as coaches is to make sure we put him in an environment, in a situation that makes him feel comfortable to where he's currently at.
All right, so against New England, I had a couple of eye-opening Diogo moments where I said, okay, all right, okay, I can see it, and ultimately we're not at training. We don't see what you see. And I'm not meaning this as a knock on Anderson, who scored a goal, but I felt like some of those through balls from Diogo to Anderson, if that's Diogo to Chicho, maybe we're seeing 3 or 4 goals from Chicho. But that's not, I'm not knocking on Anderson. But in real time, how did you digest Diogo's performance against New England, and then going back and watching it, what stood out most?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. So Diogo is a player, obviously, with a wealth of experience. His education came at a really good club in Europe and Portugal. And so he's a very sophisticated soccer player. And it's really interesting because a lot of the things that either I'm about to say or he kind of nods his head after I say it, we're so 2 or 3 steps ahead of where some of these players are in their careers, right? And so it's really interesting. He brings a lot of insight to the group. His movement to find space And what I think about soccer, especially in attacking positions, is you have to be a space interpreter, right? So we might say, like, in this, New England does this defensively, but in certain moments of the game, it's not going to look like that because it might be transition or what have you, or the players just aren't in those positions. And now you have to rely on the players on the field to interpret space. So both him and Chicho, and what I've seen in the first couple of weeks with Diego and Chicho is Diego's got a fantastic eye for a final pass, and Chicho's a very good runner. And so it's just about getting these two guys on the same page. And I feel like we'll have something special within our group. But there's a ball where, Diogo takes it almost to the end line and plays it across for Ando, but Ando was a second late. And it's that type of connection that you need on the front line to score these goals. So I feel like we left 2 or 3 goals on the table, and Diego did a great job of getting in some great positions, playing either the second pass or the final pass to create goal-scoring opportunities.
Well, while we're in this space, actually, first, let me get an update on Chicho. Last we saw he was limping off against San Jose. Is he back close to full? Do you expect him back close to full, by the time Houston rolls around? What's the update on Chicho?
Yeah, so tomorrow will be the first day he's training with the group full. So he passed his fitness exam today, didn't have any pain with his hamstring, got up to like 90% of his speed. So that's great to now move into tomorrow. So hopefully now using the next, whatever it is, 8 or 9 days to just fine-tune some stuff and get some of the fitness part back into his game. But I feel very optimistic that he'll be ready to start against Houston.
I wanted to give a little love to Anderson, though, because I didn't want to come across like I was knocking on him. I think it's probably fair to say, Pablo, that anybody who watches or follows the club understands that he's probably simply just more effective as a sub because he's so damn quick. And you throw him in there in the second half, and he's just blown by guys. But he's stayed ready for you, right? I mean, 10 starts, 7 goals. We're kind of trending towards a double-digit goal season for Anderson. What would you say about his willingness just to do what you ask him to do?
Yeah, it's awesome. Anderson Julio is one of the greatest teammates that I've come across in the years. He's always got a smile on his face, willing to do whatever is asked of him, positionally, responsibility-wise on the field. He's just a get-after-it kind of guy. He doesn't overthink things, and that's why I think you're spot on. He's been so dangerous as a sub because at that point the game has softened up, the spaces are greater, and now you're bringing in a guy that's rapid into a game that's kind of slowed down, and that's where his skill sets really are highlighted in those moments. But I think he played a really good game for us at the weekend, was dialed in defensively, and that's one of the things that a lot of people underestimate from Anderson Julio, his ability to defend and press and make things predictable, but also, like at the weekend, score a goal from a great pressing moment. So, again, like you said, close to double digits, great team player. I couldn't be more proud. And again, he didn't know that he was going to play because it wasn't until like Wednesday where we thought Chicho might still be available for this game. But on Thursday, he puts his shoes on. You need me to start? No problem. I'll get up there. I'll do the best I can, and he came up trumps this weekend.
All right, before I set you loose, I know that there is a feeling in every time Jason joins us, he gives me 2 or 3 very direct answers that I go, man, I hope nobody hears what you just said. But he was very honest about Andres Gomez and some things that you guys wanted from him that he wasn't necessarily giving you. However, 13 goals, 9 assists, and causing havoc on the wing is something that I think is undeniable, even with some of the uncomfortable stuff that went on behind the scenes that nobody really knows about. How's the process going as far as finding a player or players in his spot to replicate, at least as much as you can, the production he gave you before he moved on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny because before I got on with you, we're sitting in the coach's office, and we're thinking about that. The reason why we went from we go from a 4-4-2 defending shape to a 3-2-4-1 attacking shape is because we got a real winger in Andres Gomez, and using his speed and his one-on-one abilities. We don't want him to defend wide and deep when we're defending because we want him close to goal. So that's why we defended a 4-4-2. Is to keep him higher up the field defensively so that when we win it, the transition isn't 30, 40 yards and he's close to goal. So we're having these conversations right now. We have Dominic, who's typically been a right winger, Lachlan played there at the weekend, and I thought he did a fantastic job. And so between those two guys, I think we have a different look winger. Now, the one thing with Andreas is, and I think this is Jason's point, is he always – it seems like most of his success was outside of the game model. And what that means is basically not adhering to the principles of our attacking shape. And what that ended up doing is creating a lot of confusion for our opponents. But at times, it was when things weren't going well, it was really frustrating because we wanted him to be wide and high, and sometimes he was low and inside. But then he dribbled past two guys and shoot and score. And so it's like, it's a blessing and a curse. And so now with these two guys that we currently have, they fit the game model. And so now it's really the rest of the group adjusting to not having Andreas, who is just no one knew what he was going to do. And I think oftentimes Andreas didn't know what he was going to do. And now we have more predictable players in these positions that now it's going to be, we need more, timing of runs from the guys in the middle, and they'll add more stability as to, what they're going to do with the ball when they get it so that other players can take their cues and their positions off those guys. So I think it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think we have the right pieces in the building to make it work.
Good stuff, buddy. Enjoy, well, I know you don't have time off, but enjoy the break so you get everything done you need to get done. And I hate to say it, good luck in Houston, okay?
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, Spence.
All right, Pablo Mastroeni, head coach of RSL. 10 days off for Real Salt Lake, then they're back in action. Aaron Falk is going to join us coming up next. We're live today at the Dish Professionals, 801-424-DISH, 801-424-DISH. For all of my DirecTV people, I used to be one of you. I was blind, and now I can see. This was before the information came out that we now have as far as what DirecTV is going through. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, DirecTV and Disney are in a little dispute, and it's gotten a little ugly, a lot of name-calling. So Disney's pulled down all their channels, and this includes ESPN. And I don't know how long this could last. It doesn't sound good when there's public name-calling going on in the media. But, this is a problem if you're a DirecTV customer and you're a sports fan, for sure. And but here's the thing: I encourage people to call and look at these new deals that we have, and it's almost a guarantee between $60 and $100+ a month.
Right
cheaper.
out of the gates.
Yeah. And the DVR is bigger, it's faster, it's got more features. The streaming apps are available internally in the system. Like if we've talked about how YouTube and Amazon Video Prime are like a channel. And you can get a massive upgrade. And if you've been with DirecTV a long time, you're scared about the change. If it's going to save you a few $1,000 plus today, I got a little extra cash offer on top of that. It's may behoove you to take the leap and jump over and save some money and get an upgrade.
$100 cash back in addition to the great deals you have, but that's today only. Let's be clear.
Only.
Yeah.
And, this goes for cable customers, too. We see this if you're in that bundle, and the bundle's supposed to be the better deal. It's if they're charging you $180, $280, $300 a month for TV and internet, you're guaranteed you're going to save just a ton by calling us up. And you can keep your existing internet. We have ways that we can help you with that. Or there's tons of new internet providers out there that are ripping fast and way cheaper, some even offering $200 gift cards with no commitment, no contract. So the opportunity is yours to call up and put some money back in your pocket, upgrade, get the best DVR out there, get all the games in one place, and let us hook you up with this today-only offer.
It's 801-424-DISH. Call right now, 801-424-DISH. If you think you're paying too much for cable, you are. If you think you're paying too much for internet, you are. And you get an extra $100 today if you dial 801-424-DISH. And if you get DISH, I can tell you because I have it, you get Utah football, you get BYU football, you get Utah State football. They're on the CW.
Yeah.
They're on some other. You get the Aggies.
Yeah.
You get Jazz basketball, and we had the play-by-play voice of the new hockey team. You also get pro hockey on DISH. You get everything you need if you're a local fan.
Yeah, call us up. We've got a solution to get all the games all in one place, and we got the best price guaranteed. And today you get a little extra cash, better than anybody else.
801-424-DISH. $100 cash back today only. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, coming up on the other side, we're going to do a little bit of everything. Aaron Falk will join us, the editor of the sports section for the Salt Lake Tribune. We'll get back to college football in the 5 o'clock hour. Pro football, it is Christmas Eve for NFL fans. We'll get to some of that as well. Drive on a Wednesday. Good to have you with us. Keep it right here on ESPN 700.
All right, we're live at the Danish Professionals today. So, we look for South State State as the draft phone number. It's 801-424 dish. That's 801-424 dish. All right, in a minute. It's always good to catch up with one of the main conversation drivers on that's the sports editor with the Salt Lake community. You know, it was Aaron Ball. This Wednesday. All right, I workshopped that into here. I'm proud. What do you think?
New Twitter bio, man. I'm stealing it, putting it in there.
Yeah, well, I like it. I like it. So obviously, Aaron, it is football season. We have week 1 in the books, and ultimately, it's hard to learn a lot about Utah football against SUU. But we did see Cameron Rising healthy and upright. We saw Brant Keithy scoring touchdowns. I called last Thursday more of a celebration of Utah football than learning anything about them, all due respect to the opponent. But what were some of the main takeaways and storylines that you guys covered the trib from week 1 of Utah football?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that everybody talked about after that one, and you saw it, first drop back for Cam Rising is first real hit. I would doubt very much that there was any live action. I think Whittingham has said there was no live action for him in spring practice or really fall camp. So first drop back, first real hit.
Where we were getting punished
he looked good.
to play
and
long.
So much talk
and not
Kyle Whittingham and Andy Ludwig about limiting, keeping his jersey clean, right? Like making sure that he doesn't get hit, making sure that he doesn't.
It's time to hit the pitch on the drive. It's time to hit the pitch on the drive. The RSL Insider today and every day is brought to you.
And so to see him, maybe push the boundaries a little bit on what his coaches want, but to do that and escape without injury.
It's time to hit the.
I think that's like the
we got Aaron
that you have to appreciate
he's
as
University of Utah tight end
obviously, you have
on
one season-ending
Saturday at
injury,
Baylor.
but
Now he's
you
playing
get out of it
football
pretty clean, and
at the U. So we'll bring in Aaron. RSL is launching to the 5 o'clock hour.
RSL
New Wi-Fi in the stadium. I mean, I feel like we buried the lead. Aaron, University of Utah tight end who is playing.
It's time to.
RSL is off again. Goodness gracious.
No longer do you have to drunkenly stumble. Not that anyone there drinks, but to get your Uber, but you can do it right there. Sometimes
it's more like
between a third down jump.
Yes, new Wi-Fi in the stadium, always exciting. I talked about this earlier, though. I thought Jason Patacchio did a really good job on the piece that came out today on Caleb Lohner. I'm really curious about the situation because he is the archetype of a positional story that we've seen in football where great basketball players without a lot of football experience have gone on to achieve great things, great careers, pro careers in the NFL, going to join us coming up next. As tight end. So I've been watching Caleb play basketball since he was a teenager. He's always been a specimen. He's an insane athlete for a guy that is that big. Catches a touchdown week 1. Tell our listeners a little bit about what Jason was able to uncover as coming up on Saturday. Ironically enough, it's like a homecoming game for him. He's playing against the school that he played basketball for not too long ago.
Yeah, and so I think one of the things that Jason does really well, and I hope and he will continue this, and I hope that readers and Utes fans turn to him and enjoy it. But he's so diligent in reaching out to as many people as possible to talk to build out and round out one of these profiles. So talking to players like even John Madsen, who's made a transition from basketball to football successfully, about the technique that Caleb Lohner needs to learn to succeed, and how he can maybe make that move. Talking to Scott Drew, Lohner's basketball coach at Baylor, who kind of lays out like why he thinks that Lohner has what it takes to make that leap as well. So I think you look at that and somebody you look at why those guys make that transition. And I think it is, setting yourself up for the greatest amount of success, which is to say maybe the greatest amount of money in a professional setting once your collegiate days are done, right? And, Caleb Lohner, like you said, absolute specimen, a good basketball player. Is he a great basketball player, right? And I think you look at the body of his career and where he's sort of fit in on teams. This guy's probably not an NBA
NBA talent. Maybe he could have a nice career, in Europe or whatever. But he has the potential to flip that and maybe be something,
It's time to hit the pitch on the
or at least unique and intriguing to an NFL team with a little bit of taste, a little bit of work this year.
Today about Caleb Lohner.
Very interested to see how that
at Baylor. Now he's playing to the 5 o'clock hour. RSL is off. Our RSL is off again. Goodness gracious. Our RSL is off again. Goodness gracious.
Obviously, after halftime, really looked his way a lot, and so it does feel like. Obviously Rising is going to go to Brant Keith. That's where you're going to have most of your touches. But to see him kind of maybe get more looks than Landon King or someone who has a little bit more experience, I think goes to show you the potential that they really see in him.
It's where we were getting punished to play long. And
I want to go back to a piece that I think, let's see, Jason wrote it, and Aaron Falk is going to join us 28.
Salt Lake, then they're back in action.
You guys did a really good job of kind of outlining the finances. Aaron Falk is going to join us coming up next. Football at Utah and the athletic department, in addition to $51.8 million. Those were the expenses compared to, $4.5 million back in 2002. And then later on, there's a piece you guys wrote about the plan to pay athletes here with the revenue sharing stuff. I always find these topics fascinating because they're ever changing, and we still are in a scenario where we don't have. My take on this is well documented. Let the players collectively bargain and make it just like the pros. We have a model, okay? Essentially, it has been. But what can you share with our listeners about what you guys were able to learn about kind of the finances in the athletic department, how much football brings in, how much it costs to play high-level football, and where we're at here with Utah and their plan to disseminate these funds via revenue sharing to pay the players like they're allowed to do now?
Yeah, no doubt. And so, you look at like you mentioned, the amount of money that the U was spending, and this is true for basically every major college program, and certainly everyone that's in the Power Four now. But like in the year 2001, those expenses were $4.5 million. Like we have over 10x'd the amount that we've spent on football, and certainly there are just inflationary costs, right? There are just things that are going to be built into that. But it is a far greater percentage of the university's overall expenses, and it is a far greater percentage of the revenue. I mean, in the early 2000s, this was a third of the university's athletic revenue. Football is now almost 3/4 of it. And so you can see why when you hear other coaches talk about, or other ADs talk about this house settlement and the revenue sharing that's going to open up. And some folks are talking, we are going to pay the players that are in revenue sports, which is football, which is basketball. And I think that's going to probably be true at the U, which is, this thing is not yet signed off on the courts and by the courts, which is, to your point, like, should this be collectively bargained? Instead, it's being negotiated by lawyers. But at the end of this, it seems everyone believes we'll have $22 million that an athletic department can directly pay its players. Everybody that Jason talked to at the U, including Robert Blecken, their general manager, believes that they're going to fully fund that $22 million with more than probably about 3/4 of that going to football and paying those players. Now there's NIL opportunities on top of that, but this is what the university now has to find ways to close or make up a $22 million gap that they weren't, having to do a few years ago. And so what does that look like? In some places, that's going to mean cutting sports, Olympic sports, things that don't generate revenue. Mark Harlan has said that he's not going to do that at the U, that he's committed to funding these and continuing the Olympic sport legacy for the youths. So that means more fundraising. It probably means private equity coming in and having somebody else, pay into this so that you're filling up that $22 million gap in the process, which is a lot of moving parts. This is not finalized yet. Things can still change as the courts negotiate this, but a lot more money to have to figure out and how to deal with that, which is in part why making a move, and dealing with these media rights issues matter a lot. We look at what they were talking about with the Pac-12 versus the Big 12, and at the end of the day, does $7, $8, $10 million mean a lot? I mean, it probably does. It might mean the difference between keeping or cutting a sport for a lot of these universities. So very interested to see how this plays out.
I wonder if you've done any digging or if you have any information, because the one answer to all of these questions when it comes to individual sports and athletic departments who are looking for some sort of wind in their sails with a financial windfall, not to be redundant, is if a Ryan Smith comes along because he loves basketball and he loves BYU basketball. And, I've quipped that BYU is now a great basketball school, mostly because I like to ruffle the feathers of their football fans. I joke. But ultimately, I asked Kalani, Big 12 Media Days, straight up on air, are you getting the same support that Kevin is getting on the basketball side? He gave me a look like, he was not thrilled with the question, handled it really well. But have you been able to understand it? The answer to this, it might just be my guy, Rye. My hat is flipped backwards. It might just be my guy who just loves basketball and wants to help. But when it comes to the way BYU, from the outside looking in, is positioned right now, is there's a tremendous amount of financial resources on the basketball side without as much of a commitment with the football team, which is a absolute zig when the rest of the country is zagging. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it is an outlier in that it's a passion project, right, for Ryan Smith, who clearly basketball is the number one love for him, professionally, collegiately, and so you have this sort of unicorn billionaire alum who's going to give you this influx of cash, and we see how quickly, and not that BYU was a bad team last year by any stretch of the imagination, but this is getting national clout now, right? And it is flipped into another gear faster than I think a lot of people could have imagined, because one person came in and decided to fund this. Now, I from everything that we've heard, that is not happening on the football side. Not that there aren't football donors, but certainly not a single, Ryan Smith of the gridiron who is coming in and doing that. And I think that could go a couple of different ways for BYU. One, it could create a situation where you have, outsized expectations for a basketball team, and you have a football team that struggles because the financial playing field is now kind of vastly different. And so, there could be lament. I think the other thing that could happen here is, we're talking about the $22 million and how different schools will allocate that, in a place like, I'm making this up, I don't know, but like maybe Kansas allocates more towards basketball than football, or maybe, a place like Duke does that or whatever, right? Like these blue bloods. So everybody's going to have to figure out what percentage goes where. And I think there may be an argument for BYU to say, well, all of a sudden we have our basketball taken care of, and where everyone else is figuring out how do we juggle 2, 3, 4 different sports, we've got this one taken care of, and now we can fundraise on the NIL side, and we can fundraise, and do this internal thing to help football. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I think that's a possibility.
Staying in the space for a moment before we move on to something else with just the few minutes we have left, I've heard a lot of rumors about boosters at Utah. One rumor specifically about an individual booster specifically who's ready to write what was characterized to me as a game-changing check. You got to have them. T. Boone Pickens, whoever it is, you got to have them. Can you shed any light on these conversations that seem to be permeating throughout the community?
No, I can at this point on that, but I agree with you. I mean, and like we just talked about, this is a lot of these places they're big ships. It's a freight liner moving slowly, and all of a sudden you have somebody come in and can zip around and change the game that fast. So I do think it can be kind of maybe it's potentially dangerous in the long term or whatever to really depend on single donors in these sort of one-to-one situations. But I mean, in a day and age where things are changing so fast, your conference situation and winning sets you up for the next move, which could happen anytime. I think everyone's ready to move pretty quick if somebody can come in with that kind of money and do something like drastic for a university.
All right, so we had Matt McConnell on earlier, the new play-by-play voice of the Utah Hockey Club. We are days away. September 22nd is their first preseason game. Then the Blackhawks are in town October 8th. Are you ready to announce the plans for the Salt Lake Tribune to cover pro hockey in our market?
Yeah, absolutely. We've hired a beat writer who I think is going to be, kind of in the mold of what we've done with BYU and Utah and Kevin Reynolds and Jason Patacchio, but a young writer who is super invested in the sport and the product, and it's going to be, I think, a great resource for fans. Her name's Belle Fraser. She's been at Boston University and at mathlive.com. For folks here who may not know, like Boston University, the Terriers, it's an elite college hockey program, right? Macklin Celebrini, the number one pick in the NHL draft this year, was playing at BU. And so she's had a ton of experience dealing with high-level talent that way. She's also covered the Boston Bruins. It is her passion. She's a New Yorker, diehard Rangers fan, grew up.
Let's go. Let's go.
She is about hockey. All the nonsense you talked to me last time we were on, the barn, the biscuit, whatever. That is her vernacular. She's ready, and so she'll start just before the season goes. And I think she's going to be a really, really great resource for fans here.
sltrib.com. Subscribe and support our friends. AF, thanks for the time, man. We'll chat soon, okay?
Of course, man. Thank you so much.
Aaron Falk, the